I'm Mark.
And I'm Hans. Today we have a special episode featuring Logan. It's going to be a little bit shorter, but me and him are going to talk a little NASCAR. We're about the only NASCAR guys in the group, so we thought we'd try it with this season coming to an end very soon. A couple discussion points, but as always, Mark, how are you today?
I'm good. You know, I'm getting ready to ask some questions. I don't even know how to pronounce some of the words, so we're good to go. How you doing today, Logan?
I'm doing all right. How you guys doing?
Good. So we're going to get right into it here. We're going to talk about the playoff drivers. Round 8, the Roval Talk, eliminated at the Roval track. You know, who's making the final 8? Who's making the final 4? Who do we got?
All right, go ahead, Logan. I'll let you go first.
All right, so I have the standings right in front of me right now, and you got 4 drivers below the cut line that basically have to win their way to get in, such as Boyer and Almirola. They're both 38 and 48 points behind 8th place, so they had no other choice but to win. But as Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch, they're minus 21 behind, so they can have a little bit of help with Alex Bowman and Joey Logano not having great races, and they can make 21 points up fairly easy by getting some stage points and just having a great finish. So I think if there's one driver that's in the top 8 right now that's going to fall out, will be Alex Bowman, just because that's his luck, and I think Kyle Busch would sneak in. But I think how it is right now, 1 through 8, stays in, and then the 4 that are out now are going to be eliminated.
Yeah, I'm also going to probably agree with you as well with the standings. I don't see any chance really that Austin Dillon or Clint Boyer or Almirola are going to get in. They're going to need definitely a lot of help. I understand that Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch aren't far in points, but I just trust Kyle Busch more to get it done. And if I had to pick, it'd probably be Alex Bowman, like you said. That would be the one to not make it that far, to make it to the round of 8, just because, again, it's a trust factor, and have you done it before? And it seems like a good place for him to get eliminated quite often.
All right, so
definitely. And there's one stat that I actually saw today about Clint Boyer. So there's been 2 races at the Roval so far. Boyer's average finish there is 3.5. The first race he finished 3rd, the second race he's finished 4th. So he's a pretty decent road course racer. So I would not be surprised if he made a push to win his way into the playoffs, but I don't see that happening.
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, no, I just had a quick question is, since I am not somebody that follows NASCAR, who is the top 8?
So the top 8 right now is Denny Hamlin, Kurt Busch, Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, Martin Truex Jr., Alex Bowman, and Joey Logano.
Okay, so my next question then is, and Logan, you can answer this since Christian answered the other one, is of those 8, in the races that remain, do they have to win to stay in the chase, or do they just have to have, say, a good finish and lead some laps, or like how does it work to stay in? Like I know in golf, you have to say, you know, they have a bunch of golfers, 100 top golfers. One tournament they drop it down to 75, then it drops to 25, and then it's the championship. So how does the NASCAR thing work? Like if you're the number one driver ranked right now, are you guaranteed another race in the chase?
So basically, it's if you win, you automatically move to the next round. So each round, the round of 16, the round of 12, the round of 8, they all have 3 races in there. And if you win one of those races, you automatically get the next round.
Okay.
So Kurt Busch won the first race in the round of 8 at Las Vegas, so he automatically moved to the second round, or the round of 8. And then Denny Hamlin won last weekend at Talladega, so he's automatically into the round of 8. The round of 8, I'm sorry. And then there's certain drivers like Harvick. I think if there is a repeat winner, if like Denny Hamlin or Kurt Busch win again, all he would need to do is finish 8th place or better.
Okay.
But if there's like a new winner, no, I said that backwards. I'm sorry. If there's a new winner like Austin Dillon or Kyle Busch, he would need to finish 8th or better. If it's a repeat winner like Denny Hamlin or Kurt Busch, all he needs to do is basically just start his car and.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially for this race, like he was saying, that you have 16 playoff drivers, and every 3 race, 4 of them get eliminated. If you can win one of those 3 races or just try to finish them, pretty much, you pretty much can be guaranteed along, whereas Denny Hamlin and Kurt Busch have already won, so they don't really have to really suit up their car. They have to, but they don't. Honestly, it doesn't matter what they do this weekend, even though Denny has the pole. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
The other drivers is what's important.
Okay.
And I wanted to go back to your Clint Boyer thing real fast. I know you mentioned Clint Boyer is a pretty good, what are they called? Like Roval type track guy. I know you said he's averaged 3.2 finish there. Do you know where he's starting for this race, where his starting grid's at?
Yeah, I got the lineup right in front of me, actually. So if you give me one quick second if I can find it.
Yeah, you're good. No rush.
The Wi-Fi is a little slow.
Because I know
he's definitely starting in the top 12. Here we go. So he's actually starting 11th.
Okay, because I was wondering, because you know how the Rovals are, there's not a lot of opportunities for passing at full speed, kind of like drafting. So really, the top 10 drivers, whereas you start, that's a big deal, right? So
track
position
is key at this track.
Hopefully he can make it up that far. But I think Mark is going to go ahead with our next question here.
So out of everybody that's left, who's your favorite to win?
My favorite to win, it's a toss-up between Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin. They both have just dominated the season. Harvick with 8 wins, Denny Hamlin with 7, and then if Harvick won, Hamlin was second. If Hamlin won, Harvick was second. So it's just been those two all year.
They've won 60% of the races, them two.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm gonna take I'm a Harvick fan, so I'm gonna take Harvick. But I wouldn't be upset if Denny won either.
Yeah, I have. Actually, the way it sits right now in the 1 through 4 is actually who I have in my final 4. Is Denny Hamlin, Kurt Busch, Kevin Harvick, and I have Chase Elliott getting in there for this year. But I agree with you between Denny Hamlin and Kurt Busch. I don't see anybody else taking it from them. Denny Hamlin, and especially this year, you know how the final race at ISM this year, and it's not at Miami. And Denny Hamlin and I'm going to start with Denny Hamlin 1, but in Denny Hamlin, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say Kurt Busch. I'm sorry. Kurt Busch is in second right now, but I think Martin Truex Jr. could be the one to squeak up into the final 4.
Yeah, I was going to say if
yeah, I didn't mean to say Kurt Busch.
Yeah, it's I think he'll be eliminated next. It's either going to be Brad Keselowski and Martin Truex Jr. who's going to be in the final 4.
But I definitely think Harvick, Chase, and all them. But Denny Hamlin averages a 4.1 finish at ISM in his entire career. And I remember that I looked it up, and Kevin Harvick averages a 5.2. They're the best of all the drivers remaining. And since it's at that at that track, those two drivers are going to eat at that track. I think Denny Hamlin in his career, all the times at ISM, he's led 30% of the laps there in his entire career. That's insane. So if it comes down to that, it's one of his favorite tracks, he said. So I could trust him there. So you got anything else on that one?
No, I'm good.
All right.
What you got, Mark?
So now we're really talking in the season. We're talking a couple different things here. So I'm assuming is it Denny Hamlin and MJ, Michael Jordan are building a race team with Bubba Wallace. This is, in my opinion, this is making news because it's a new team coming in. It's not one of the traditional teams that you have. I'm not going to tell you. I know that the Jimmy Johnson team is really good, and I know Joe Gibbs Racing is really good. So is this a big deal, or is this just something that's making noise since it's Michael Jordan and pretty much the only other African-American racer, which is Bubba Wallace? Is this the only reason why it's making noise, or can they make noise in the NASCAR circuit?
I think they can definitely make noise because Denny Hamlin knows what the car needs to win. Obviously, because he has 7 wins and he knows what to do. And they're aligned with Joe Gibbs Racing, so they're going to get a lot of help and research and development from JGR and a lot of tips and all that. But I don't think they will win in their first year, but they will definitely be competitive. But I mean, it is a big deal in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree. I think it's a big deal, and I think they'll do well. Again, this has nothing to do with Bubba Wallace on or off the track. Mostly it's on. I don't think Bubba Wallace is a top 10, top 12 driver any week, usually. I know he does well at super speedways, but again, randoms always win those tracks because it's literally all about who doesn't wreck the most, right? I think he could average... I think he could do better with this team, being that it's a JGR affiliate. So you're going to get the Toyota development. You're going to get some pieces from Toyota. So you know it's going to be good, whereas... It's not like a third-party type team like, whatever Brendan Gaughan type racing. You know what I mean? Like a really small team, a charter team. They're going to get the research. So if you wanted my opinion, I think they would do well. But I agree with you. I definitely don't think it's this year. But he brings a lot of money to this team.
Oh yeah.
Bubba signed so many free agent, like so many endorsements that most drivers don't bring. He got the job. Michael Jordan wanted him. It's great for the sport to have the African American pride being brought back in with Michael Jordan being such a NASCAR fan. And then you have now, like I said, Bubba Wallace. But I think mostly it's a power move, honestly, to help bring in a new generation of fans. But I don't expect maybe one super speedway. I don't expect Bubba Wallace to finish top 5, but maybe once all year. Maybe two top 10s.
All right.
Yeah, I think they'll knock in on the playoff door, but they won't make it.
No, I agree.
All right. Now, I know a couple of these car numbers. We got free agents taking over big names. So who's going to be driving the 88, the 14, and 43 car this coming season, since all those drivers are retiring?
Or fired.
Or fired.
Or moved on to another car. That's why I mentioned the 88.
Okay.
88, Bowman took over Jimmy Johnson's car. So he just moved one stall over in the same team.
Okay.
So go ahead, Logan. I'll let you go first.
So with the 88, I think Kyle Larson is going to get reinstated by NASCAR, and he will fill in that seat with Hendrick Motorsports for the 88. He still has to go through a whole bunch of process, because when he did what he did and got fired from all of the sponsors, his team, his manufacturer, and so he was with Chevy, and Hendrick Motorsports is a Chevy-operated team. So if he goes back with Hendrick, that means Chevy would need to approve that. But I think that he went through all the sensitivity trainings, and he's did what he needed to do. He's gone into the African American communities and just learned about the culture and why what he did was not appropriate, and he understands that now. And but I think he gets reinstated, and he will be in the 88 next year. The 43. That's going to be a toss-up between Eric Jones, your boy Christian, and Clint Boyer. And then finally, the 14, I think Chase Briscoe, who drives for Stewart Haas in the Xfinity Series, is going to hop up into the 14 ride for next year.
All right. So I thought about this all day. Mainly, I brought this question up because these are the 3 best cars available. You would agree, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if all the other cars available are like in the 90s or the 80s, they're smaller teams, and most of the drivers left, there's obviously more talented drivers than cars available. So I went a little bit opposite of you, and the only reason is because of one thing you said. So I'm going to start off with, I think, Eric Jones, my boy, to the 88, and the only reason I say that, and I've been thinking about it all day, is it brings me to my next point, and I have Kyle Larson in the 14. And the reason I put Kyle Larson in the 14 is because Tony Stewart, who co-owns Stewart Haas Racing, has been wanting him on his team for years, who loves him more than anything, and it says, I would love to see him get a shot. 2, I could be wrong. I'm trying to look at the car right now. Stewart Haas is a Ford affiliate, correct?
Correct.
So he would not need to be reinstated by Chevy. It would be an easy transition to the 14, being that he already is friends with Tony Stewart in the dirt scene. I think it'd be an easy jump for him. And Hendrick is a very high-quality team, and I really think the reason the decision hasn't been made between Eric Jones or Larson is because of the sensitivity training. Both drivers bring their butts, but no sponsorship. So it's about what driver's better, knowing that both are kind of stale and don't have like Olympia or this or these brands. They have no companies to bring with them, especially Larson, who pretty much burnt every end he had. So I have Eric Jones in the 88 and Larson in the 14 for 1 year because of the Briscoe moving up next year. I have Briscoe moving into that seat for the next-gen car, and then I think Larson will sign a bigger deal with maybe if Christopher Bell doesn't work out or someone else doesn't work out somewhere else. And then in the 43, I picked either Corey LaJoie or Ty Dillon. Both are, pretty top free agents right now, and we all know that Richard Petty would like to have another minority driver, so I think Corey LaJoie fits that well. What do you think?
I didn't even think about LaJoie or Austin or Ty Dillon. Sorry. I was just thinking about Boyer because Boyer is a veteran. I think he has about like 9 or 10 wins in his career, which is not great, but it's also not bad compared to like all the other drivers in the field that barely have 5.
Yeah.
And Boyer's been bounced around a lot in this since he came into the Cup Series, but I think there's a couple other teams that are going to expand their charters. I think Spire Motorsports is going to have 2 cars next year.
Yeah.
and I don't know who is going to drive, but I'm sure Ty Dillon will have a seat next year, and then Corey LaJoy, I think he'll stay with Go Fast Racing.
You think so? Okay. I know they haven't extended him yet from what I was looking. I could be wrong. That's the reason I wanted to ask, is because there's going to be a lot of teams, maybe not this year, but I know next year a lot of teams are going to open up them charter spots for someone like Stuart Haas maybe to add a fourth car, because the next-gen car is going to be a lot more affordable, and they're going to be able to do that, whereas right now Stuart Haas might not be running a fourth car because of the financial reasons that JGR and Hendrick can.
Stuart Haas does have 4 cars already.
Who's their fourth car?
It's Kevin Harvick, Clint Bowyer, Eric Almirola, and Cole Custer.
Cole Custer. That's why I keep forgetting that.
Yeah, he took was it Suarez's spot?
I'm sorry. I keep want to say Penske, right? Penske's got 3, right?
Yes, Penske.
Okay, that's who I'm thinking of. I'm sorry. Penske's the one with 3 cars, the one that I could see moving to a 4th team more than likely.
Yeah, and as you heard, Matt Benedetto re-signed with the Wood Brothers Racing, who is affiliated with Team Penske.
Yep.
And in 2022, Austin Cindric is going to take the 21 ride for Wood Brothers Racing.
So Matt Benedetto.
And Austin Cindric is also going to run a limited schedule with Penske Racing in the Cup Series next year. So they will have a 4th car in the field from time to time. Nice.
Okay. That makes sense. What we got next, Mark?
All right. Well, this question here is, I'm going to answer this myself, but I'm going to have a double-edged question right here, so you guys can answer the question and then answer the follow-up. Is Dale Jr. a Hall of Famer? No, he's not. He's a face. He's a name. And he didn't do enough, in my opinion, to warrant Hall of Fame consideration. The only reason why I know that is because you pay attention to his father was my favorite driver. So I wanted him to do well. And I just don't feel like he lived up to any type of expectations at all. But that being said, to me, the reason why NASCAR is popular is because certain people have followed it their whole lives. People like me will not watch NASCAR unless it's the Daytona 500, which is the first race of the year, and no other race matters to me. And I will say that simply. And Daytona's coming to a point where it's just too many crashes. You don't have to watch the race you just watch the last 10 race laps and you can find out who wins. In my opinion, NASCAR does an awful job of promoting their drivers. You don't know who any of these people are. Like, you guys have been saying names and no idea who they are. And being a novice fan, as novice as you can get, which I am, you need to have that face. And to me, as soon as Jimmy Johnson, I knew Jimmy Johnson, I knew Dale Earnhardt, I knew Jeff Gordon, I knew Petty, I knew these guys. I followed these guys. You wanted to root either for them or against them. So who are these drivers, and why isn't NASCAR? You have all these advertisements up on these cars, but you have no advertisements to promote these guys.
I want to say one thing real quick before we jump to the Dale Jr. talk, if that's okay with you, Logan. We'll go back to this, but I don't want to forget what I was going to say. So if you walk into any Napa store, any AutoZone store, any oil section parts of Walmart, any of these stores, you'll see drivers all over everything. In fact, I actually see more NASCAR drivers in the public eye on cereal boxes or these kind of things than I do any other really athlete that I can think of. Am I wrong with that, Logan? Like, I feel like I see NASCAR, especially Chase Elliott, who is probably, I know that's your boy, and I don't mean this in disrespect, but probably one of the most coddled drivers of the sport because of his dad, who's pretty much like a Dale Jr. to Dale Sr. type thing. Chase Elliott's a prodigy. And the amount of respect he gets in the sport, I mean, maybe not with other drivers, but I feel like I see him in a lot of places. Anytime I go on my local Napa, he's everywhere. He's all over the building on everything there. So I think I agree with Mark in a way, but I think in a way NASCAR is going to have to be careful with its advertising because it's hard to get a populace to like it. Does that make sense?
No, I 100% agree with both you guys.
And I think the hard part is you have to get people to like NASCAR or they're not going to like NASCAR, where people are like, maybe I'll get into basketball. Either like cars or you don't like cars. So in order to get the average fan, NASCAR does a hard job at getting the average fan, but it does a really good job at attracting the new fan. So if you're new, like I got into it about 2 years ago again, I haven't been able to find a way. I've watched more NASCAR than I have football. It's found a way to keep me in by adding races I like, drivers I like. They interview a lot of drivers. You actually get to hear more from them. They they have a post-race team thing for like an hour where they interview drivers and stuff like that. So, no, I understand where Mark's coming from. It's just a hard sport to market. But I do want to jump in with you here, Logan, because this is what I know you wanted to get into, was go ahead and explain your opinion on Dale Jr. because I know he's on your boy's team.
Okay, so I grew up a Dale Jr. fan, always have, always will be a Dale Jr. fan. And I'm not being biased when I say that he does, well, he is in the Hall of Fame now, but he does deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And the reason is, yes, his Cup schedule or his Cup career wasn't up to Earnhardt standards, as Dale Earnhardt won 76 races and 7 championships. I mean, Dale Jr. has 26 wins, 149 top fives, 260 top tens. He's a 2-time Daytona 500 winner. And then with the Hall of Fame for NASCAR, it's not about what you do in the Cup Series. It's what you do for all of NASCAR. Okay? So when he first started in the Xfinity Series, then it was called the Busch Series, he had 142 starts, 24 wins, 70 top fives, 94 top tens, and he was a back-to-back champion in 98 and 99. And then as an owner, which he started in 2005, he discovered drivers like Brad Keselowski and Martin Truex Jr., who are now champions in the Cup Series. He has 54 wins as an owner, and he has 3 championships. And then the safety issues he's came up with after he got his concussions in the car has changed the sport tremendously. I just think he's done a lot more throughout his entire NASCAR career, not just the Cup Series career, to make himself Hall of Fame eligible. And yes, obviously his name is a huge part of it, but it's not all of it.
So I want to jump into, because as of about a couple months ago, I know we talked about it, I was an average fan for many years, and I didn't really see where, in my opinion, Dale Jr. was a Hall of Famer. I didn't grow up watching a lot of NASCAR, but I do remember about 10 years of my life catching 4 or 5 races. So, like, the crown jewels, right? Me and my family, we always watched Daytona. We always watched Talladega. We always watched races like Texas, which is a crown jewel, Bristol, and especially Darlington, right? So I watched these couple races. And I remember seeing Dale Jr., Jeff Gordon, and Jimmy Johnson always being the big 3 for about 10 years. And Mark did mention Richard Petty and Dale Sr. and these guys. He named about 6 drivers that are all about 40 years apart from each other. Does that make sense? NASCAR gets like 1 or 2 dudes every decade that are really important, right? Some, like Jimmy Johnson, were lasting longer than others. But those 3 drivers, to me, in my opinion, I would always argue that Dale Jr. was the worst of those 3. Of the 3 of them, right?
But I mean, between the 3 of them, Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon have a total of, 11 championships?
Yeah. So there's a lot of championships between them. However, one thing I did want to say is something Jimmy Johnson doesn't have when I looked this up. 28% of the time, Dale Jr. got into a race car, almost 30% he finished in the top 10. That's crazy. Yeah. Even though he didn't get a lot of wins, he finished most of his career in the top 10, but the thing that's going to hurt him is that he's never won a championship. But it's like you said, being an owner of now an Xfinity team, other things like that, he's been great. He's done all these other things. So I just think in general he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I know they said first ballot Hall of Famer, but NASCAR just doesn't do. I guess their Hall of Fame is just a little. Their Hall of Fame, when I looked through it, just looks a little off to me. Where when some of the drivers I've looked up just don't have a whole lot of wins. So I wonder if NASCAR does a thing with their Hall of Fame, just saying we're going to put these drivers in the Hall of Fame that just kind of change the sport a little bit, but they weren't excessively superior drivers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but I do want to say this: even if you don't have a championship, if you have 30 wins in your NASCAR Cup Series career, you are automatically a Hall of Famer, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Getting 30 wins is very hard to do.
Oh, I agree. Now, with that being said, do you think that Clint Boyer is a Hall of Famer?
No, I do not. He only has like 9 or 10 wins.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I think Clint Boyer is a great personality for the sport,
yes.
But I agree with you. And then again with Dale Jr., with his off the stuff like his announcing and all that kind of stuff, he's done every facet of the sport top to bottom, where I think it's just utter disrespect to not have him in there. But I think about 30% of his Hall of Fame probably is because of what he did on the track, but I think there's a lot more he did off the track that is qualifying for Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
All right, so my question to you both to end this is very simple. What is it about NASCAR that I should pay attention to? to become a fan, to become somebody that actually is interested in watching it. And, you know, even when I was a kid and being a huge Dale Earnhardt fan, okay, I mean a huge fan. I loved that man. I would still only watch 10 laps. I would still watch maybe the very beginning and the very end. What is it about NASCAR? I mean, because I'm a huge baseball fan, and there's times where I don't want to watch a whole game. So what is it about NASCAR that I should be paying attention to?
Go ahead, Logan.
To me, it's the strategy that they put in from the very beginning of the race to the very end of the race, because anything can happen at any given moment. If you pit too early, you can get caught with a caution, and then you're all the way back, and you have to work your way up through the pack. It's the strategy factor for me. And then some tracks, there's great racing, and then I will admit, some tracks like Dover, for instance, they're duds. It's just long green flag laps, no cautions, nothing really exciting. But you kind of get like that with like every other sport. Like football, there's going to be games that you're expecting it to be great, but then they're just duds. It just happens. But I think in the past like 3 or 4 years, when they've been changing the cars and doing stuff with the motors and the downforce and all the different packages that they've had for these cars, it's made the racing 20 times better in my opinion. And then when they got the stage racing involved, that made drivers race even harder in the middle of the race than they usually would.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think for me, I think this is interesting to be able to tell Mark this perspective is I grew up watching NASCAR, and I remember watching probably to about 2010 or 2011, and I kind of got out of it. And the reason is I knew, I'd say probably 2015. I'd say it was a couple years back, right? And I got out of it for a couple years because I knew Jimmy Johnson was getting up there. He stopped winning. Gordon had retired. I knew Jimmy Earnhardt Jr. was gone. So I was like, man, who am I going to root for? And me knowing I like sports, especially when it comes to something like NASCAR, where it's so strategic, one day I was sitting there, and I don't know what I came about, but I think I put on a NASCAR race. One day I was sitting there with the wife, and I was like, I love NASCAR. I'm going to give it another shot. It's one of those things like, I'm just going to give it a shot, right? And it was a Talladega race. It was towards the playoffs. And I was watching. I was like, man, all I know is Jimmy Johnson. He does not look good because he's older. I mean, it doesn't mean he's not good. He gave up his great crew chief for another driver, and I know he helped people out. But I'm like, I just don't know if this is the same as I want. So I watched the race. I was like, man, this was really good. And when the race was over, I just decided to do a quick Google search. And Logan knows this. I did a quick Google search, and I searched best NASCAR racers under the age of 25. And I said, I'm just going to pick one of these dudes, and they're going to be my dude. And I scrolled, I know Chase Elliott was on there, someone else on there. I was like, I've heard that name. I've heard the name. I was like, oh, this dude, look, this guy's 22 years old. I looked up his history on Wikipedia. I said, cool, middle of the pack guy. I'm going to root for him. And when you pick a driver, that's one of the hardest parts, and Logan will know that. When it comes to NASCAR, it's hard when your favorite driver retires. It's like your favorite golfer. So when it comes to golf, for example, when Tiger Woods is finally dead and gone, not dead and gone, but retired, people are going to be like, man, I just don't really want to watch it. You owe it to that sport to find a new golfer to cheer for, or cheer for many. I know people watch NASCAR who don't have a favorite driver. They're just like, man, I hope this guy does good to this guy, or I like this car color. It's kind of one of those things for me where I attached myself to a driver like Logan did, and you want the best for your driver, and if it's not a good race, well, that happens. And like Logan said, there's going to be some tracks like Dover, which I know it's local to us, 20 minutes away, but it's like, meh. It's not a very exciting track. It's just not. But then you get the short track racing. You get the Roval racing, which people are like, I don't really like Rovals. The old heads don't like Rovals. But there's just so many tracks you have to get into. But then, of course, Kentucky's going to come up. Or Kansas. These boring same tracks. But you just kind of have to take it with what you can give. So do you have anything else there, Mark?
No.
You're all good?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I hope you guys had fun.
Do you have anything else, Logan?
No, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. Hopefully we do it again.
Yeah, that'd be fun. We'll try to get one here soon. Maybe when the Final Four is announced, right before the playoffs end, we'll have another one short here to discuss the last four and maybe the last race at ISM.
Yeah, I agree. And Mark,
yes,
you want to watch a little bit? Watch these last four races because they will be intense.
All right. I'll take you up on that.
All right, Logan. It was nice having you, bud.
All right, thanks, guys.
Same, man.
Bye.
Bye. All right, man. Well, we had Logan on, little NASCAR talk.
Yeah.
Not trying to convince you to watch, but it's one of those things, like I said there at the end, it's I didn't watch it for a long time because my favorite driver didn't race anymore, and I was a Dale Jr. fan as well.
Yep.
That's who I watched. I'd never watched his dad. I wasn't old enough, but I was like, and then he was gone, and I was like, it's like all these 25-year-old dudes. There's no one you can name.
Yeah.
But I think that's what makes it fun is that there's so much talent, but they're young. And I definitely think that makes it a lot better. So
Yeah.
I think it'll be good. So
Yeah.
anything else, Mark?
No, I'm good.
All right, guys. Everybody have a great night.